Hello, my name is Colin Cheng, and today I'll be doing a video presentation, over the book of James, chapter 1. So let's get into it. So let's start with an introduction. So, a significant book in the Bible that has inspired many believers of the past, like the early Jewish believers and modern day believers, such as myself, to persevere throughout the trials they face throughout their lives, is the book of James. This video essay will cover the historical context and the overall significance of the book of James, chapter 1. In particular, its historical importance for the Jewish believers, the general purpose of the book, and discuss the relevance of the verse James, chapter 1, verse 12, NIV version. Let's get talk about the historical context and significance. So, the book of James was written by James, the brother of Jesus, not the disciple James, son of Zebedee. James was one of the early leaders of the Jewish Christian group, and this book contains many of the letters James sent to that specific group of early Jewish Christian believers to address the internal and external conflicts they were facing during that time. So they face many types of persecution, both internal and external conflicts. So they face external conflicts such as persecution and internal conflicts such as social inequality and issues within their community. Let's get talking about that. So the book and introduction to the Catholic epistles by the Christian scholar Darian Lockett discusses these conflicts that I just previously mentioned and the purpose of the letters that they sent to the believers. In the book, Lockett states that, quote, the letters of James was written to Jewish Christians experiencing persecution and social marginalization. The recipients of the letters were facing trials and difficulties from both external persecution and internal sources, conflicts within their community, and social inequality. James writes to encourage and instruct the believers on how to live a faithful life in the midst of these challenges, and emphasizing the importance of enduring trials and remaining faithful to God. Lockett, 2012, page 60. So, this quote affirms that James was writing to the early Jewish Christian, and not only that, but he, in the text, he also addressed the challenges and difficulties they were facing. The letter explains, as explained by the letter, he wrote it to encourage the believers and to also instruct them on how to live a faithful life in the midst of such challenges and tribulations. And this message is consistent with the message of James verse 1, chapter 12, which I'll get into later, which emphasizes the importance of staying faithful in the midst of challenges. So now that I've talked about the historical context and the significance of it, let's now talk about the purpose and the overall purpose and significance of the text and how it still applies. So the primary purpose of the book of James, especially the first chapter, is to encourage believers to live faithful lives despite their challenges and to live out their faith in tangible ways. James also gives instructions on how the believers can live their lives in faithful ways. So a quote that affirms this belief and perfectly explains the book's purpose and intent is from the book 1st and 2nd Peter, James and Jude, Interpretation, a Bible Commentary for Teaching and Preaching series by Perkins and Fems. In the book, they write, quote, the primary purpose of the book of James is exhortation, which is basically meant to encourage. James addresses his letter to the 12 tribes in desperation, that is, to Jewish Christians who also have been scattered from their homeland and now are living in various places. They face danger of assimilation to the culture around them, including its social hierarchy and values. James offers practical instruction to his readers on how to remain true to their faith and distinctiveness as a community of God's people. He addresses a variety of issues, including the use of speech, the treatment of the poor, patience and suffering, and the relationship between faith and works. Throughout the letter, James emphasizes the importance of living out one's faith in tangible ways. Pumpkins, 1995, page 141. So, when James wrote these letters, he was fully aware of the suffering and adversities these believers were facing, and he didn't just want to sit idly by and let them face it, but instead he wanted to give them encouragement. He does this by addressing the struggles they were facing, and tells them that in the midst of the storm, basically the trials that's happening around them, he tells them to not lose their faith. Instead, he encourages to persevere and informs them of the importance of living out one's faith in tangible ways. James also provides insight to his readers on how they, as a community, can remain faithful to God in the midst of these challenges. So, a quote that I think that does a great job of encapsulating the central concept of persevering throughout the trials, which is mentioned in the book of James chapter 1, is James chapter 1 verse 12 of the NIV version. So the verse states that, quote, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trials, because having stood that test, the person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him." The verse is significant because it addresses that Jewish believers face trials and states that they are not struggling in vain for no purpose. James states that those who persevere, or in other translations such as the English Standard Version, those who remain steadfast under trials, are considered blessed. He explains that those who have withstood the trials will receive the crown of life from the Lord, which he has promised to those who love him. As stated before, the purpose of the verse is to encourage us, exhort the believers by acknowledging their struggles and informing them that their struggles aren't in vain, that those who persevere and remain steadfast throughout it are blessed, and that the Lord will reward them with the crown of life. Their struggles and their challenges have a purpose, and God will reward them for it, essentially. So, overall, this video essay has covered the historical significance / context and the significance of the text that is the book of James. So, the book was written by James, the brother of Jesus, not the disciple, and it was addressed to the early Jewish Christians when they faced many trials and tribulations. The purpose of the verse is to encourage the believers to remain faithful while they go through such challenges and trials, and to say that those who face these challenges are considered blessed, and they will be rewarded with a crown of life from God. Thank you for listening. This is my works cited. Thank you.